Hey, everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm so happy to have you here as I am with every episode. And today I'm fulfilling my mission to you with another amazing success story. I've got Phillip Stutts with me. Phillip, welcome to the show.
Hey, honored to be here, Mike.
And let me tell you a little bit about Phillip and why you should be as excited as I am that he's here. Phillip is the founder and CEO of Win Big Media and founder executive chairman of Go Big Media. The first is a corporate marketing agency, and the second is a political marketing ad firm. He comes from the cutthroat world of political marketing. He has over 2 decades of experience working on campaigns with billions of dollars in political ad spend and contributed to over 1,400 election victories, including 3 U.S. presidential victories. Congratulations on that record. 1,400 seems like, how do you even get into 1,400?
It's 1,433 now.
Yeah.
1,433 now.
So Phillip plays the game of political and corporate marketing on the highest level, battling it out with fierce competition, multi-billion-dollar budgets, and a win or die mentality. He's spoken in front of 50 million people in his career, and he's been on every media outlet you can imagine, and on some of the biggest podcasts out there, including James Altucher's, which is one of my personal favorites. I think Phillip holds the record for the number of appearances on James's show.
I think I do.
Now, Phillip has written multiple bestsellers. His newest book is The Undefeated Marketing System: How to Grow Your Business and Build Your Audience Using the Secret Formula That Elects President. It's really cool how he brought it together: political example, business example. It was kind of neat in every chapter. Finally, Phillip hosts the Undefeated Marketing Podcast, which is a fairly new podcast, but he seems to be crushing it with getting some really, really killer people on the podcast. I listened to his episode today with Peter Diamandis, and yeah, it was really good. So congratulations on that. It's going well. You can connect with Phillip at Phillip, Phillip, Stutts, STUTTS.com, or at winbigmedia.com. So Phillip, let's get into this. I start every show with the same question, and that is, how did it happen for you?
I laugh because I know that you start the shows this way. And the answer is, I don't think I've made anything. And it's not a humble, it's not a rooted in shame. It's that I'm on a journey every day of my life. And I don't feel like I've licked anything. I have big goals and big outcomes. But ultimately, I'm probably 5% into my journey of where I want to be in my life, where I want it to go. And so to feel like I've made it, I feel very blessed. I feel like I've achieved a lot of the goals I've set in my life, but it's more about my journey and trying to grow and get a little bit better every day. And I really don't even focus on where I am. And, you know, I'm definitely, I do a lot of different things in the therapy side. Like I've done psychedelics. I have a therapist. I've done a lot of different things. And, you know, I think one of the things I say is I need to celebrate some of my victories more. And I admit that. But at the same time, everything about my life is about growth. And if it's about growth, it's not about where I am. It's about the destination and the journey to get to the destination. And so for me, it's an endless hike up a mountain, and I just want to enjoy that hike up the mountain every day. And that's all I really think about and focus on.
Okay, fair enough. And this celebrating victories thing, can you talk to me a little bit more about, because I feel like I've had a problem with that. So
I think we all entrepreneurs do, don't they?
Do you think so? I think some are really good at celebrating.
Well, rare.
But, yeah.
I agree some.
Yeah.
Not many that I've been around.
Why is that? Why do you think that is? Why is it for you?
Well, I think most entrepreneurs come from a background of trauma, and they're overcoming trauma, and they found that outlet through entrepreneurship. I can tell you, I doubt my daughter, who is going to have every everything that I didn't, and I don't mean in buying things for her, but the attention she needs in life, the love, the ability for my wife and I to listen to her and respect where she comes from. All of those things. There's not there. She'll have her own trauma and whatever it is. We all have trauma, right? But for her, I don't know if she's going to be an entrepreneur because there's no burning need to prove anything because she's so comfortable in who she is at 9 years old. I'll never have the kind of comfort level that she has already in her life. And I celebrate that. I think it's amazing. But I think for entrepreneurs, we're rooted in a lot of trauma that we channeled into something good and positive and betterment of the world. We all have trauma, right? And I think some people channel their trauma into crime, some of them into abuse. Entrepreneurs channel it into creating jobs and a better life. I think that's amazing. And maybe that's the celebration in and of itself.
You know what? I had someone on my podcast a while ago who actually referenced PTSD in conjunction with entrepreneurs, which I'd never heard before. I'd never heard. So I've sort of always heard it in a military setting. And I just guess I never really thought that much about the dramatic impact that trauma would have on someone.
Have you ever gone to a therapist?
No, I haven't. Are you laughing at me?
Well, I'm laughing at you because we all have trauma, right? I've spent 8 years. I've done thousands of hours of therapy in various forms. I've literally taken LSD and MDMA, which is, ecstasy, with a therapist and my wife in the room, and to unlock all of that trauma. If you don't know what that is, it's about to be legalized in this country. It's in its third clinical trial at Johns Hopkins University. And they've really done it with a lot of people that have been, a lot of veterans that have been over in Afghanistan and Iraq who experienced massive PTSD. And they found that instead of ignoring their problems or giving them a drug like a Prozac for their whole life, that just by taking MDMA or mushrooms, they can overcome all their PTSD or their trauma in literally hours. It's over. And I've done it. I had to do it illegally. I had to do it underground. I did it with a therapist, and it's the most impactful thing I've ever done in my life. And so I've overcome a ton on that and understood where all my behaviors come from when I act out, where when I yell at somebody or I get frustrated with somebody, that's just the shame I feel from when I was 5 years old as a kid. And I know where it comes from. And I've just done a lot of work on myself. And so when I look at, ultimately your original question, I'm proud of who I am and where I've come from. But I'm at the beginning of this journey. I'm 47. I didn't start this journey until I was about 39. And this journey of transformation of who I am. And, I had the chance to we repeat the patterns of our parents over and over and over again. And that's the kind of stuff that in your teenage years, you go, I will never be like them in this way. And you name 10 things and you wake up 20 years later and you're doing all of those things.
Right.
And I have no resentment. My parents did the best they could with the tools they had. But the bottom line is that I had to change my behaviors in order for my daughter to have less traumas of what I went through. So I didn't pass those on to her. Anyway, long story short, that's, what you asked the entrepreneur question. I just channeled it into entrepreneurship. One of the things that I have uncovered in all my work is how much rejection I went through in my life. I went through massive amounts of rejection. I'm not going to go into all of it, but massive, like 10 times more than anybody else, any normal or regular person, or on average, let's just say. And when you go through that much trauma of a rejection from basically 5 years old until, my 20s or my, late 20s, when I decided to become an entrepreneur, rejection doesn't bother me as much anymore. So I'm the perfect entrepreneur. I get shut down every day. Things don't happen every day. Things don't work out every day. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just a little bit of rejection. I can handle that. I've got a muscle for it. And so maybe that's a good thing for me as far as being an entrepreneur.
And that's interesting, because this whole thing about as a teenager saying, I'm never going to be like that. But the reality is you're taught how you're taught, and it's hard for you to know what other reality there might be. But this whole sort of rejection thing, when was it and how did you first convince yourself? And I got that in air quotes because it sounds like you've just sort of figured that out more recently. But how did you sort of think you were past it when you were
I'm never really past it.
But how do you think you were when you were a young adult? Say, for example, like I got out of, I'm out of the house now, and
I did. The abuser or the abused became the abuser. I became the rejecter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was your power, was to
that was my power. Whether you work for me, whether I didn't have a serious girlfriend until I was 32. I just went through women like crazy. I rejected everybody I could. I literally went from the abused to the abuser, and I wasn't abused. I'm saying that metaphorically.
Yeah.
But I treated people horribly. I was going to reject them before they could ever reject me. And that lasted, in some form or another until I was about 43, 44 years old. I'm 47. And in a MDMA psychedelic session that was revealed to me. And then I had a choice. What was I going to do with that information? And I could either change, or I could go down the path of a broken marriage, a broken family, a broken business. I mean, those were going to be the consequences for me very soon. And I had to turn that around. And I'm a work in progress.
And are you willing to sort of take me through the journey of the first time with that? Because
first time with what?
The first time experimenting, or maybe experimentation isn't the right word. I'm not sure what the right word is, but I hear Tim Ferriss talk about that a lot.
Sure.
Dr. Max talked about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering to myself, okay, what has to happen before you say, okay, this is something that I need to experiment with or try? And then how do you feel going into it? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Were you, having never been through it, I'm just curious about that.
Well, one thing is you never go into psychedelic medicine if you haven't done previous work on yourself. Like to just walk in and think it's going to solve a problem is wrong. I had done 4 or 5 years worth of therapy, a lot of therapy with psychologists, with therapists. And there tended to be a point where I plateaued, where I just couldn't get beyond certain things. I was completely blocked by it. And I have someone that I'm very connected with that said, hey, you should try this. It's going to help. And he said it to me because I did the work before he introduced it to me. And so I went to, there's one of the most famous sort of therapists in this world is out of New York. I my wife and I flew up to New York to do it. And I was so nervous because I knew I would face my demons. You got to face your demons. Whether it's MDMA or LSD or mushrooms or ayahuasca or whatever it is, you are going to face shit you didn't want to ever face. And here's the thing, 99.9% of people, they'll just decide not to face that stuff. I tend to always take the road less traveled and the most painful road in the short run, because on the other side of that short-term pain is long-term happiness, joy, empathy, kindness, generosity.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to make the decision to do that. And people don't want to look, we just see this with COVID. Nobody's willing to do any of the hard work. I've worked out for 25 straight years, about 4 to 5 days a week. I eat an incredibly healthy diet. And yet the government wants to place restrictions on people that do the right thing, that are unvaccinated, versus people that are overweight, have, comorbidities, aren't doing the right things. And it's just like, good, I'll take the booster or I'll take the vax. And guess what? I get to do whatever I want in society now, right? So you punish the people that do the hard work. That's the way the world works right now. And the people that are healthy and probably could get COVID and probably do okay on it and then have natural immunity, they're the ones that get punished. And so it's a metaphor. And my point is, most people are never going to walk into that therapist's office and go, I'm going to take a drug and find out all of my demons. And then I'm going to have to look at myself in the mirror and I'm going to have to make a decision of what I want to do. I did not want to do this. This was not an easy decision. I have never been so nervous in my life. And I was so nervous to do this and so nervous about what it would reveal that I looked at my wife in the hotel room as we were ordering the Uber to go do this and go to this therapist's office and do this psychedelic session, that I looked at her and I said, I don't want you to come. I'm going to go by myself. So the last act that I did before I did this and had this revelation that I just talked about on the rejection was I rejected my wife and told her to stay in the room.
Right. And did she?
She did. And, it was, that was not a good thing. It was something I had to face after the session. And I actually knew now why I did that. In the past, I just would have been like, no, don't come. And unconsciously, I had no idea what that was, why that was. And this time I came back from the session and I said, I know exactly why I did that. And I'm sorry, and I had to, it's not about apologizing all the time. It's about changing behaviors. And so I usually do a psychedelic session and I spend a year in therapy integrating that session. And then I go do another one. And then I spend a year in therapy integrating that session. And then I go do another one. And so that's sort of my path.
And do you, did that first one reveal what you thought it would, Phillip, or did it reveal something that you weren't conscious of when you walked?
Oh, I was not conscious of it at all. No, I had no idea. No.
Huh.
But it's where all of my behaviors came from, was a fight or flight to not be rejected.
Right. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. You wrote in the book, until I was 40, I was a lost soul and a wannabe entrepreneur. And it seems like that line might lead up to some of what you just talked about.
A lot of it.
What's been amazing to me is, like, if that's true, and I'm assuming that it is true, it's true, you wrote it, since 40 or 47, that's what's been found. Because, when you look at, your resume, your bio, and all of the things that you've done, I would say the normal person looking from the outside is looking at that and go, lost at 40? I don't know. He doesn't look lost or want to be. So I'm just curious.
Well, wannabe entrepreneur is this. I had a one-man business, me. I'd had it for 9 years. I had never even knew what a profit and loss statement was. I didn't know what a balance sheet was. Literally, I didn't know what it was 9 years in. I finally took a class and they brought it up and I go, what's a P&L? And they go, how long have you had your business? I said, 9 years. They said, how are you running? I go, I just look at the bank account. That's a wannapreneur.
Okay. So look at a bank account, turn everything else over to an accountant to do your taxes. And that's that.
Yeah. He produced a P&L and I never looked at it. I didn't even know what it was. It made me nervous to look at it. So I didn't even look at it.
Right.
So that's the wannapreneur. Well, the lost soul was everything I told you about earlier. Right.
Yeah, okay.
And that's clearly, I guess we just defined that pretty clearly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I had that right.
Yeah.
I
was good at what I did. I was an artist.
Well, yeah.
not an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how you became an artist. So you come.
Well, an artist, you know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah. You're really good at what you do. And you're like I don't know, like a painter, right? People want to hire you because you paint great stuff. And
right.
you were good at helping people win elections or put campaigns together, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're
Correct.
talking about.
Yeah, that's it.
How did you get started with that?
Well, I mean, I'm the first generation of ADD kids, there was no ADHD. They hadn't come up with the H part yet. It was just ADD. It was attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed by a therapist when I was 17 years old, 15 years old in 1989, and they put me on Ritalin. And ultimately, Mike, I can only do the things I'm really passionate about because my attention just can't stay with it, right? If you give me something I'm passionate about, man, I'm uber focused, like insanely focused, right? Almost to the point of I can't focus on anything else. And so I only cared about two things growing up. I loved college football, but I'm 5'9" and 150 pounds, and college football was not going to be in my future, but I like watching it. And the other was I liked political campaigns. I didn't care about like tax policy and environmental policy and all that kind of stuff. I cared about the elections. I was so fascinated by how people got elected, sort of the marketing of it. And it ultimately ended up being what I ended up going into because I was so passionate about it. And, there was a 3-year period from 2000, 2001, 2002. By the end of 2000, basically 2000 into 2002, where I had a total of about 22 days off total, including weekends, over a 3-year period. And I loved it. Man, I loved it. I ate it up. It was everything to me. I could work Saturdays all day long,
Right.
to midnight. I loved it. You couldn't stop me. And that's kind of why I got into it. I mean, I was running governor's races, a United States governor, or a governor race for the Louisiana at the age of 29 years old. I was helping to run a U.S. Senate race at the age of 28. I was in the West Wing meeting in the White House with the president at 26. It was heady stuff, man. And it fueled, I had a lot of fuel for it.
That 26 meeting in the White House, I think that's the one where you were with Secretary of Education, Rod Page. That's from the book? That was so funny because by the way, nice story, because I had a fighter pilot on my podcast, and he said that, when you come out of flight school, you think that you're this big deal, right? And you get into the next stage, and I can't remember what the next stage was, but the nickname they give everybody that goes into the next stage was NFG 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And NFG stands for new freaking guy. And so you go from like way up here to, you're sort of nobody. And in the book you reference, I think it was President Bush who referred to you as one of these guys or something.
Secretary Page.
That he gets, he gets somebody bolted onto him, really, I guess, to help him, like an assistant or something. And you
That's right.
So NFG came to mind when you made these guys reference, right? Sort of the same. You're thinking, I just got appointed this great appointment, and it was, and obviously there's status and in recognition for job well done with that, but you're still just an NFG, right? Until
that's right.
Really make it. Yeah. So your podcast, the Undefeated Marketing Podcast, but what made you do it? And what are you trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah, it's really easy. I wanted to give free content out to people that read the book, or people that want to understand how the marketing world has completely been turned upside down. And there's a new approach, a Moneyball approach, not a guesswork approach. There's a way to be successful in marketing in the crazy disruptive digital world. There's a process and a formula to follow. And obviously I wrote the book, which you kindly put up at the beginning of this interview, but I said, I want to continue to have conversations on it. And I have a simple rule. The only guests that come on are my friends. And it's funny. This is really what I do. I get pitched every day from strangers that want to come on. And I tell them if they pay me $5,000, they can come on. Otherwise, I'm just going to have my friends. And I know they're going to all say no, right? No one's paying me $5,000. That's the whole point. Right. But my friends are Jay Abraham, who's literally the greatest marketer in the history of in America. In the history, he is the greatest. He's helped make over $22 billion for his clients. He's on the Mount Rushmore of marketers in this world. I've had, like you said, Peter Diamandis and James Altucher. We've got a guy coming up in a couple of weeks named Brian Miles, who just sold his company for $137 million. And he walks through his new startup, how he's marketing that, and how he plans to scale it and grow it and exit. I want to give free content out to help people. This is one. I always say I write a blog, I have a podcast, and I have a book that you can pay $8 for. And you can pretty much get all you need on the marketing front for about $8. I mean, you can get endless content from me. And for me, that's a lot of fun. I have fun doing it.
And Jay Abraham, he's kind of interesting to me because I listen to him a lot, and you're marketing program, the 5-step program, is all about data, 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 in a world where we can have so much data that it can be very difficult to know what to do with. And if I remember, Jay's career is sort of, he was the same way with data, data, data. He just had to get it in a lot different way then.
Yeah, we've become really good friends, and he loves, obviously I make his approach a lot easier. And so we do a lot of stuff together.
Right. And I mentioned that I listened to your episode with Peter Diamandis.
Mm-hmm.
We are both in Abundance 360, which is Peter's mastermind, I suppose. And one of the things that is unique, I think, about that group, or one of the many things that are unique about that group, is this idea of a massively transformative purpose, or an MTP. And I think in your podcast, and even in a blog that you wrote, you basically credit Peter with saving your life or something.
Yes.
Something along those lines, which is pretty heady stuff. Can you talk about I'm still working on my massively transformative purpose. I can run it by you if you want, but yours developed not long after, you joined, and you had and now it's, if I'm up to date correctly, you've made some remarkable progress.
Yeah, so I have an incurable, well, doctors say it's incurable. I don't, but doctors say it's an incurable esophageal disease called achalasia. Basically, the muscles and the nerves in my esophagus don't work, they're dead. And so for eating purposes, it's extraordinarily hard for me to eat food because everything gets lodged in my esophagus. No matter how much water I drink, food stays in the esophagus, which makes my esophagus erode and is susceptible to cancer. It's a big problem. It affects about 1 out of 100,000 people. Millions of people have this. There's no, up to this date, there's no cure to the disease. And so when I was at Abundance 360, Peter got on stage, and you've seen him. He says, people, take out your notebook and take a moonshot. A moonshot's something people say is impossible, and you'll make possible. And he's like, and do it in 5 years or something. Yeah. And so I wrote in my notebook, I'd find a cure to this disease in 5 years. That was in February or late January 2017. So we're in 2022. So we're talking we're January 22 as of today. And so we're talking 5 years ago, right? A very long story short, but I started on this cure path, found and partnered with Johns Hopkins University. We extracted almost 1 billion stem cells out of my thigh muscle. We grew them in a lab. They created the first what they would call compassionate use case in history with me. The compassionate use case is like a clinical trial, except I'm the first one before. It's like 3 steps before a clinical trial. I'm the only person that has ever attempted what we're about to tell you. No animal has ever attempted it. I mean, this hasn't been tested on animals. I hadn't done anything.
This is a Phillip Stutts original.
Yeah. So they injected in the, right before the pandemic in February 2020, they injected 250 million stem cells into my esophagus to try to hopefully regrow or restart the muscle and the nerve in my esophagus. That procedure did not work, and it took. That was in February 22. So then in the fall of 2021, they basically said, we can do this one more time. We want to try it in a different area of your esophagus. Do you want to do it? I said, sure. So this time they injected about 650 million stem cells into my esophagus. In a different region. And about 3 days later, I started eating easier, and we don't know why yet. In March of 2022, I'll go back to Hopkins. They're going to scope and look at everything and figure it out. But it's now 4 months later. I still have relief. It is not cured. It is, I can eat about 25 to 35% better than I was able to eat for the previous 11 years, which is massive for me. I mean, that is like a game changer. Sure. It used to take, 64 to 80 ounces of water to get down one meal. And now I can get that meal down in about 32 ounces of water. 30 to 40 ounces of water. And so we don't know what happened, but the bottom line is I'm the first person in human history who's ever improved his condition with this disease. So this disease does not ever improve. It only sort of devolves. And so, yeah, we don't know what it is. I'll find out in a couple months, but I'm pretty hopeful and pretty excited. And it all kind of goes back to Peter inspiring me to take that moonshot.
And without treatment, would it be where you'd need a feeding bag at some point, or what? How does?
Oh yeah, I
does
mean,
it do?
I'm on a trajectory where they would remove my esophagus. They gave me in 2016. The Mayo Clinic gave me 5 to 10 years before I was removal of the esophagus and on a feeding tube. And I still have my esophagus. I changed everything, changed my diet, obviously did this procedure, changed, a lot of behaviors in my life. And I'm sitting here still going strong and actually improving. And so we don't know what that means. I have a lot of people that suffer from achalasia, and, they think that this miracle, that whatever's happening to me is this miracle cure is just around the corner. And I'm like, whatever it reveals, it's going to still take years to get there, and I'll be leading the charge. But, I've taken a huge step forward, and I did it in 4 years and 8 months. So I made my goal
Nice.
of doing it within 5 years. And now it's, how can we continue to make this better?
And if I remember correctly, before before Peter said that and you wrote that down, you had been, basically on a track of, well, whatever the doctors say, I just do. You weren't even really, I think you were taking the path, if I remember correctly, that a lot of us take, like I think about my mom now, she's got all these different things, right? Well, the doctor says this and the doctor says this. I said, well, yeah, but you're not getting any better, Mom. So maybe another doctor, might have a different opinion. But I think I remember you saying that you were, I don't know, you were sort of like maybe ignoring it or just going along with whatever they told you. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I definitely had my head in the sand, and I outsourced my disease to my doctors. And,
Okay.
I'm really grateful for the experience because it prepared me for COVID, So again, in 2016 or 17, I went for a checkup at the Mayo Clinic, and I said, hey, I think I want to try to find this cure to this disease. And they laughed at me. And literally the doctor giggled at me and said, yeah, take your medications we gave you. By the way, those medications
go away. Yeah.
Yeah. The medications have long-term dementia effects, but they work in the short run. Take those medications and we'll see you in 6 months. And so it taught me that I don't begrudge the Mayo Clinic doctors. They're the best in the world, but they see 100 patients a day, and I'm being lumped in a group with 100 other patients who may have different symptoms, may have different problems, may have different diagnoses of the same disease. And they're just all putting us in a box, giving us a pill and telling us to go home. And it made me realize how screwed up the medical system is. And while I have 5 different doctors right now, I take all of their opinions, but then I form my own. And, during COVID, I literally reached out to all of my doctors and I said, what's the best way to handle this? And 4 of those doctors said, don't ever take the vaccine. These are doctors. And 1 of them said, take the vaccine. And the other 4 said, if you get COVID, here's the protocol of all the things you need to do. And so I said, okay, great. Now that I had all that information, I can make a plan, but it's going to be the plan I make, because I consulted the best doctors. I have functional doctors. I have regular doctors. I have celebrity doctors, but ultimately I have to listen to them and then make the best choice for me, because they do a great job, but I'm one of many, and I need to figure out what works best for me.
And do you think that this progress that you're making with the psychedelic sessions, for example, are having some kind of impact on the progress that you're making with the disease as well?
I think it's all, yeah, Mike, I think it's all intertwined.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move to your book.
Sure.
And there's a lot of stuff in the book, but the thing that got my attention was when you basically broke it down in one sentence, and it was marketing is a bloodbath. And having been like, so I'm around entrepreneurs all the time, and I think that marketing is one of the things that most of them, the vast majority of them, want. You said put your head in the sand about your health. I think most of them want to put their head in the sand about marketing because they can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And to them, they see it as, money with no tangible return. Some, not that they don't see a return. They just can't put, like you said, I couldn't read a P&L, didn't have a balance sheet. It seems like they have no P&L or balance sheet for marketing spend. And you, in your book, you talk about, well, marketing's a bloodbath, but here's basically a 5-step process that I know if you follow it. And interestingly, you also give examples of when you didn't follow it with clients and why it didn't work out, which I thought was really good. Like you didn't just say, yeah, everyone I do works great, because you're a human too. And sometimes you get pressure back and you change, but you were able to put, these 5 steps together. And I guess I just want to, you want to walk through them, or you just want to tell me why, what ultimately should people be thinking about when it comes to marketing?
Well, I mean, think of it like this. There are a lot of people, man, I grew up with a lot of people that love to gamble, and they love to go to the casino, and they would have about $1,000 in their pocket, and they'd be walking into the casino, and they'd look at me and they'd say, Phillip, when we walk out of this casino tonight, we're leaving in that limo. And they'd be pointing to the limo. Now, this is back in the early 90s, where limos actually meant something, right?
Okay.
And they're like, we're leaving in that limo, right? And they walk in, and they not only lost 1,000, they withdrew another 2,000 or 3,000. They lost that, and they're out all this money, and they're depressed, and they're sad, and they're like, what did I do? And marketing is kind of the same way. The house is always going to win. So the house are the big tech companies, right? The house is Facebook and Instagram and Google and YouTube. They are always going to get your money regardless. Now, you could have a hot hand every once in a while and do really good at your marketing, but eventually you're going to lose, and you're going to lose more than you win. And ultimately, I found out in the marketing industry, when I did a ton of research before I walked into the corporate marketing or business marketing industry, when I kind of started applying political strategies to businesses. But when I walked in, I went, oh my God, everybody, all the marketers in this industry literally guess at everything. Mm-hmm. They sit around a table and they butter up the owner, and they tell them how great they are. And then they say, oh, we came up with this incredible concept. It's a whole new brand for you and all this stuff. And then in my brain, I'm thinking, well, they just made that up. They just sat around and brainstormed at a conference table. And what if that concept or that brand or those ads, what if they don't actually work on the customer or the client? Like, you've just wasted all this money without any assurances that you're going to have an ROI. And so I said, you know what? It's weird. The way we run marketing campaigns to like politicians is rooted in sort of a Moneyball approach. It's all rooted in data. Every decision is rooted in data, and it's optimized. And so we have to, in politics, if I lose more than I win, I'm out of business. And there's so much innovation in political marketing because we have an election every 2 years. We have candidates that raise a lot of money and spend it all. And if you lose, you're out of a business. No one's going to hire you. You got to win a lot more than you lose, all of those things. But we're so massively innovative that what we realized since 2004 was playing the data and analytics game in marketing, and then utilizing that to optimize client campaigns over and over again for better performance. And, I have, the whole book is about the 5-step formula that we use to elect presidents and how businesses have used it, how we've used it with businesses. We have 4 clients right now, Mike, on the corporate side that one is a 106-year-old furniture company. And they had the best 6 month in the history of their company in 2020, a furniture company. We work with a law firm out of New York, and they've had the best 2 months in the history of their law firm, a 27-year-old law firm, after working through our system. We work with a pest control company that's been around for 37 years, and they have had the best month in the history of their company in the past year. And we work with a granola food company, and their Black Friday in 2021 was the greatest Black Friday sales they've ever had in the history of their company. The company's been around for 12 years. And I'm not saying that because I'm some genius. I just follow a data-backed approach to their marketing, where every step of the way, we're evaluating the data and optimizing what works and getting rid of what doesn't. And the messages we come from, or we use for brand, for anything else, all of those messages, they come from what the customer of the company thinks, not what you guess and hope they like. Or you go, oh, I know my customers, they love this product. Well, maybe they've never been communicated properly on some other product that you have that could make you 10x. And my point is ultimately it goes back to the step one of our process, which is you must understand your customer. And for me, I gambled and bet everything on that. So I have a partnership with the largest data collection, analytics, and AI company in America. And we have in our database 240 million American consumers, 550 million connected devices, and we're tracking 10 billion with a B, 10 billion online purchasing decisions every day, and 1 trillion searches. And I can literally overlay your customer list, your client list, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter, e-com, doesn't matter. And then I can track their movements online, and then I can spit out a 55 to 75 page report that tells you everything you've ever wanted to know about your customers, what social media platforms they're on in a chronological order. So if you're spending money on Facebook, and I can tell you that Facebook is the 6th performing best platform, why are you spending all that money? Now I've optimized your entire budget to play Moneyball to make sure that every dollar you use is utilized effectively and efficiently. And then the messages, we can tell you what the top 3 values are in the lives of your customer. The top 3 values, who the hell can do that today? I can. And if you knew that your top 3 values of your customer, wouldn't you be marketing to those values? Not in a manipulative way, in an empathetic way. And so my point is that, the rest of the steps, they can speak for themselves. But we do a deep dive. So, we just did this report for our mutual friend, Peter Diamandis. And, Peter is partners with Elon Musk. And Peter is now, we're going to do some more projects for him. But, this guy is like blown away. Mark Cuban has endorsed this data approach that I have because I've worked with Mark and advised Mark on this kind of stuff. And I can go on and on and on and on. I mean, Fortune 200 companies, startups, private equity, venture capital. We worked with almost every single industry, B2B, B2C, e-com, everything. And I've never, ever had one single person invest in this product and not be blown away by what they find. And so, look, it's not that I'm trying to sell it. I'm just trying to tell you there's a different way to market in this age. And the fact is that you're being taken advantage of as a business owner every single day by the marketing industry. And, I'll give you one last story before we get out of here. So we did some work for a Shark Tank company. It's actually this office chair I'm sitting in right now. And when they came,
okay, so they were on Shark Tank. You're saying
they were on Shark Tank, and when they came to us, they said, "Hey, we just got a bunch of VC money. We got to triple the company in the next 2 years." And we looked at their data, and we found out, kind of like I said earlier, Facebook was the 4th performing platform for their customers. They were spending 85% of their ad dollars on Facebook, and they had a Facebook marketing agency. So do you think that Facebook marketing agency is ever going to tell them not to spend 85% of their budget on Facebook?
Yeah.
No, they're probably getting them 100. And my thing is, I don't give 2 shits where you spend your money. I care about where your customers are and what they want to hear from you. And I just follow the data. I am literally media, social media, traditional media. I'm platform agnostic. I go where the data tells me, and that makes me ethical. And it also makes me efficient and ruthlessly efficient with marketing. And the clients that we work with have grown. And so I know the formula works, and I decided to tell the whole story in the book. And I think you aptly said this. My book is not a textbook. My book is a fun book, marketing book on stories. I did an interview earlier today, and this guy said to me, oh my God, I saw this book and I'm like, oh, great, another marketing book. And he goes, and I read the first page and I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then I read the second page and I'm like, oh, that was a cool story. And then all of a sudden he goes, I couldn't put it down because it's the most fun. It's a ton of fun marketing stories. If you ever want to know how a political campaign works, this is the book. If you want to know how that translates over to business success, then this is the book. And I just tell everything through stories.
Yeah. And that's what I liked about it. Cause everyone sort of starts with a political story and then you move it to, to a real business case story that, it makes it like the juxtaposition is really, it's really cool. And, the thing that you said there that was very interesting was when you go and you run all this data, you don't really even need to know what the company thinks of its customers or what it thinks. In fact, you find that out yourself. And
when I deliver the report, I go, I just want to give you a heads up. I don't know much about your company. I know everything about your customers. And that's what this call is going to be about.
Awesome. All right, Phillip, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you got to run. I do appreciate it. I definitely recommend that you buy Phillip's book, Undefeated Marketing. You could also listen to it. By the way, I'm recording my book right now. Was that a cool process?
I didn't record it. Everybody gave me the advice, don't do it yourself. It's the worst thing you'll ever go through. And I'm so glad I didn't. The guy that did it, I literally auditioned like 10 people and I really like this guy a lot. I will say this before we get out of here. If anybody is interested in learning how their customers would look in our data, we do offer a 30-minute free consultation. It's a phone call with my top data team members, and they will literally say, tell us about your customer list, and then they'll tell you how our data interacts with that and what to expect if you were to invest in it. You do not have to invest in it, but it is a free assessment, and you go to phillipstutts.com/insights. And it takes you literally 20 seconds. I think you even filled this out before, Mike.
I did a couple years ago. I'm going to go to the company that bought mine, and I'm going to actually go to 5 people today and recommend they go and take advantage of this because it is a killer report that will open your eyes to a bunch of things. I think we were a little bit too new and putting too many companies together, and we just couldn't figure out what we were doing, Phillip.
Well, I always said it's just, if people say they don't want to do it, it's never about me. So you're good. I appreciate that.
Fair enough.
It's in your business life cycle. It has to be a good fit, right? But the bottom line is, before you go out and spend a ton of money on marketing, get it right to begin with. Invest your dollars in what will work, so that you're not looking back 2 years from now and going, I can't believe how much money we've spent. We're back to square one. That's what I'm avoiding for all these business owners.
And it doesn't matter, right? B2B, B2C, e-commerce, whatever.
Yeah, we work with $1 billion B2B company. We work with a lot of e-commerce companies, and we work with a lot of B2C companies too.
All right, cool. Phillip, thank you so much for being on the show.
Really what an honor, man. Thank you for having me.
Is brought to you by Wincheck Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.